Yo. Everyone, and welcome to an I'm fanfic for you. We're back with another part of what if Issei was betrayed by his girls and became the master of Grand Order. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Now, let's start to part 2. Issei was looking around until he saw a sign. Medical care, Dr. Romani Archiman. The door slid open to reveal a smiling man eating a slice of cake at his desk. He savored each bite with closed eyes before noticing the trio's arrival. With a gulp and a clatter, he jumped from his chair and dashed towards them. Romani. Here, bring him to the bed over here. He pointed at the elevated bed as they placed Issei down as the bed creaked under Issei's weight, his body rejoicing at the softness. Roman. He activated machinery that began to scan Issei at all angles. Several torn muscles, various internal injuries, some bone fractures, and superficial wounds that need to be dressed. Did you two see what happened to him? Ritsuka. Fu and Mashu found him lying on the floor, answered the red-hair girl. I asked what happened to him, but he didn't answer, so I guess he doesn't remember what happened to him. Roman. Strange, it looked like he was attacked, but there's no report from security about any incidents. His clothes don't look like one of our uniforms. Roman turned to Issei. Hi, I'm Romani Archiman, the chief doctor here, but you can call me Dr. Roman. What's your name and rank? Issei. My name is Issei Hyoudou. Issei frowned on the meaning of a rank. What do you mean by rank? Ritsuka, you don't know where you're assigned in Chaldea? She asked curiously since it's so obvious. Issei. Chaldea. What is that? He began to wonder where the hell he is right now. And think of ways to punish Azazel. Mashu and Ritsuka shared a look, while Roman kept his eyes on the results on the monitor. Roman. This is unusual. He doesn't possess any magic circuits, but an immense amount of odd is circulating within his body. Astonishing, it appears to have a draconic signature when referenced with the database. I can barely believe it. He spoke in surprise while Issei was panicking that they know he is a dragon. Ritsuka. What? She exclaimed as she rushed to the monitor. A human with the energy of a dragon. Not just Chaldea but nearly all of the magic organizations would have leapt to grab a hold of him. Issei winced at their excitement as his headache increased. His vision flickered, he was no longer on that bed. He stood where his subconscious is together with his best friend and partner. Issei mind. Issei. Drag, what the hell happened? I remember the portal, but everything else is a blur. Why does my body hurt so much? He said with a voice filled with panic. Drag. He seemed to be tried while speaking to Issei. I don't know, partner, but I recommend that you don't use your abilities for now and focus on gathering information. Issei. Understood, I'll be cautious, but do you remember what happened when we entered the portal? He said, wanting to remember what happened since all he could remember is a troll appearing out of nowhere. Drag. From what I remember, this is what happened. The dragon explained the story on what happened. Flashback. In a space filled with nothing while traveling in a tunnel to nothing was a red armor. This was no other than Issei in his scale mail wiles, talking to his friend and partner Drag. Issei. Drag, where are we? Issei said while looking at his surroundings for an exit of this place. Issei has been moved with no stop, almost feeling nausea for the constant motion. Drag. I don't know, partner, we're properly in the dimensions gap, but instead we're being dragged like a rag doll. Also, please stop this, I'm getting nausea from this, said the dragon, feeling like to throw up in Issei's mind. Issei. Drag, don't you dare throw up in my mind. He said shout but was resisting to throw up as well until. Then I'll be of assistance. Consider yourself lucky, Hyoudou Issei, for the great Zelrich has come. Shout an old man with a white beard and white hair and was smiling at Issei that made our hero start to panic. Issei desperately tried anything to move or run away from such man, and Issei was told to never trust a smiling old man or else bad thing will happen, and his feeling was right on the money. Zelrich. Ah, no need to run away. I'm here to help you. Well, you'll be helping others and save the world from annihilation. A normal job for someone like you. Now do your best. Issei set the old man to pull out a sword and start cutting a portal. Issei. Drag. Someone save us. What's the last thing from both Red Dragon Emperors as when they entered the portal? Issei's armor began to break apart as he yelled before griping his teeth until landed on the floor. Zelrich. By the way, your full power will be sealed. It won't be fun if we use it, but don't worry, this old man gave you the abilities that you once have in the armor, not to mention you'll be able to unlock it when desperate situations happen. And you don't have to worry, you have skills better than other Issei. Oh wait, he's not longer here. Hope you provide me entertainment, Hyoudou Issei. Flashback ends. Issei. Damn it, so we're in this situation because of an old man, and what do you mean by the annihilation of the world, and this is our job? Greg. I have no idea, partner, all this is new to us, but like I said, gather information. I'm going to rest for a little bit, said the dragon very tiredly as he laid on the ground. Issei. Drag, are you good? He said to his partner, noticing how he seems to be very tired. Greg. I'm alright partner, it's just that when we entered that portal the boosted gear went with some changes, currently I'm going to investigate. You'll only be able to use the boost gear in the meantime. You can at least use your swords or use the emergency suitcase that you beloved left behind for you. Issei. Alright Greg, take a good nap. I only use those things in case something bad happens, tell me when you're fully recovered. He said before he went away from his mind. Roman. Oh dear, he's getting drowsy. Roman reached forward, placing a hand on Issei's shoulder. The gentle touch brought Issei out his mind. I guess you need some rest. Issei nodded. I need to be calm in the situation. He needed to know what's going on, but their smiles really helped to assure him that he is safe and isn't alone. Ritsuka. Mashu and I will go to the director to report about him. It's strange that no one briefed him about Chaldea before bringing him here. That aside, something happened to him and we need to figure out what, she said, wanting to get answers on what's going on. Roman. Just nodded. Go on ahead, I'll look after him. Issei's vision began to get blurred and unable to keep his eyes open any longer. With that, he gave into the world of dreams. With Ritsuka. You said Issei Hyoudou? No, there's no record of Chaldea enlisting such a person. Ritsuka. Had a frown. Then you mean he got inside Chaldea without authorization, director? Frankly, this concerns me, especially when our first major ray shifting is about to commence. The fact that someone, even an unauthorized person, was attacked is worrying enough. Olga Marian Hemisphere drummed her fingers atop of her desk. She stared at her screen before sighing. You said Roman discovered he had the Eye of a Dragon. Ritsuka and Mashu nodded. Olga. Once he recovers enough, we'll question him. Then if there is nothing suspicious, we'll test for his compatibility to become a master. Ritsuka, I'm tasking you with Issei Hyoudou, since you're not involved with this ray-shifting mission. In the meanwhile, keep an eye out. I've already informed everyone of a possible threat inside Chaldea. Ritsuka. Understood, director, she said before turning to Mashu. Good luck out there, Mashu. Mash, thank you senpai. As soon as Ritsuka exited the director's office, she exhaled, uncoiling the knot that wound up her stomach. The first ray-shifting mission would be a momentous start for Chaldea. A step forward for their initiative to protect humanity's future from abnormalities in the time stream. Ritsuka hoped nothing went wrong. She turned her thoughts to the mysterious boy, Issei Hyoudou. His arrival was foreboding and welcoming. The director expressed her frustrations trying to find suitable master candidates. In order to even be applicable to be a Chaldean master, they must be capable of enduring ray shifting. She was the latest one to be recruited, but there were only 47 others. Ritsuka shook her head. Imagine that out of all the Magi in the world, only 48 were capable of becoming a candidate. Then here comes Issei, someone who has an immense amount of draconic odd. Dragons, now gone from the earth, were considered the pinnacle of phantasmal species. A human possessing the energy of one had untold magical potential. He would be the strongest master in Chaldea if he was one. Her excitement faded when she recalled his wounds. Every staff member in Chaldea had extensive background checks before they were recruited. There was little chance that someone attacked him in Chaldea. Aside from the fact that he possessed something no other human has, he popped out of nowhere. The circumstances revolving around him are just too suspicious. Whatever the case, it was her job to find out. She wished that he wasn't an enemy to Chaldea. She slid into the medical ward, only to find Roman typing away on his laptop. She glanced at the bed where Issei was supposed to be sleeping. Her heart started beating rapidly, noticing that he's gone. A shiver ran down her spine and quickly spoke to the doctor. Ritsuka. Doctor, where did he go? She said, very panicked that he was trying to escape or something. Roman. Actually, he was healing pretty fast, and he asked me if he could go to the bathroom, so I told him the directions and he left. Don't worry, he'll be back in a minute. He said not to worry about it. Ritsuka. Wait, how did he heal so fast from such injuries? And did you really let him go to the bathroom without accompanying him? She couldn't believe he healed up pretty fast. He must have some bandages. Roman. Let me ask you something, does it feel comfortable being accompanied by a grown man to go to the bathroom? He said, since he could understand Issei feeling it would be strange being accompanied by another dude like a child. Ritsuka. I'm gonna look for him and bring him back, he might not know his way back, she said, rushing to find Issei. But Issei. He came out of the bathroom. The reason why he had to go is because he didn't felt so good from his stomach. It seems being dragged around like a ragdoll in that dimensional gap really did a number to his stomach, and also he couldn't help but have the feeling to use the bathroom. Issei. Thank God I have those phoenix tears in case for emergencies. I'm slowly healing up. I did had to take one before that doctor could notice. He said, beginning to walk around, but looked out in the window and saw that it was snowing. Okay, I can't go outside, just where are we? Issei couldn't help but admire the view on how much snow there was. It wasn't a very big fan of the snow, since he's a dragon, but the human part of him enjoys it. When he used to be a kid, he began to wonder how everyone else are. He began to shake his head. His girls were tough and he'll come back. So he continued his journey back, trying to use his memory and where the medical center was until he accidentally bumped into a girl, followed by 6 others who watched this. Issei. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look where I was going," he said before offering a hand to the girl who bumped into have an eye patch on her right eye. "It's fine, you should watch where you're going." She passed for a minute before noticing his injured torso. "Are you alright?" Issei. "Oh, this I'm alright, still hurts, but I'm healing right now," he said, showing off his smile before her companions began to speak. "Oh my Ophelia, did you have one of those love encounters I've heard about?" Ask a man, or he seemed to be a man in Issei's eyes. Ophelia. "No, I didn't, Pepe. Besides, his has to go to the medical center," said the now known Ophelia. Issei. "I was actually heading over there right now. I only left because I needed to use the bathroom." Answered very calmly. Watching this group seemed to be wearing some kind of diving suit. "Come on, we don't have time to did with this guy, we have to go and get ready for the race shift," said a sliver-haired guy who had the face of someone who looks tired. As the other 4 studied to agree, but one of them was staring at Issei very curious. Ophelia. "You're right, Kadok. Let me just tell him the directions back to the medical center." That she began to explain the directions on the way back. "I hope you got everything. By the way, my name is Ophelia Famersalone. I hope we see each other again." She began to wave goodbye and follow the group. Issei. "Thank you, Ophelia. The name is Issei Hyoudou. I wish we see each other again," he said, also waving goodbye. Meanwhile, the blonde-haired guy who was watching at Issei made sure to remember his name. As Issei saw them off, began to wonder, but it's going on. What do they mean by race shift? But before he could even think of anything, he was found by Ritsuka. "Ritsuka. There you are, come on, I'll take you back to the medical center. Even though you're healed, you still have those bandages around you," she said before dragging Issei back to the medical center. "Medical center?" Ritsuka. "Hey doctor, we're back," she said as Issei began to walk and sit down on the bed. "Roman. Oh hey, you two are back." He waved with one hand as he watches Issei. His wounds are actually healing at such an astonishing rate that I would have thought he was a servant. Might be due to the draconic or something. At this rate, he should be good to go within a few days or so. Ritsuka. Had a smile. "That's great. I expected it would take longer." "Roman. Amazing, right?" Laughed, taking a sip from his coffee. He turned to see Issei sighing. "I heard from the director that Chaldea never recruited him, so how he got here is still a mystery." Ritsuka. Had a frown. "The director and I were hoping he could become a master." "Roman. Yes, I thought so too," he nodded. He turned around his laptop so she and Issei could see the screen. Some of them were notes on his wounds. Ritsuka winced at their severity as she glanced through them. What caught her eye was the synchronization percentage for ray shifting. "I ran the preliminary tests for ray shifting compatibility. You can see it, right?" he exclaimed. "Spirit run dive synchronization rate over 100%. Ritsuka. Gawked at Roman, over 100%. "How is that even possible? Even for the candidate masters, the highest we could maintain was a 90% synchronization with our spiritual self." "Roman. I'm sure you know that ray shifting involves the master projecting their spiritual form into the time stream," he stated. From that point, masters delve into the abnormal realities dubbed singularities and investigate the source of the problem. While they're in the field, Chaldea constantly monitors the masters so that their very existences do not get altered or fade away. Your synchronization rate is the foundation of the connection between Chaldea and your spiritual form. Ritsuka. Thus, the higher the rate, the more stable their existence will be, and the more power they can use if necessary, she concluded. Then that means if Issei shifts, he'll be able to utilize a lot more magical energy than any of the current masters. Meanwhile, Issei was holding his head and trying to think on what they were talking about until he gave up and lay on the bed and hearing their conversation, at least trying to get information. Author's note. Can't blame him, my head would hurt if I heard a complicated math problem. Roman. That's what our theory indicates, he nodded. If he were to summon a heroic spirit, their parameters would increase by several ranks. Far more than any of our current candidates. Ritsuka laid back into her chair, trying to let it all sink in. The majority of Chaldean Magi were all from prominent families. The research of several generations were at their disposal. Those from Magus families had superior quality magic circuits, and they inherited cumulative knowledge via magic crests. Civilian Magi such as her were at a disadvantage. It was naive to think otherwise. She couldn't deny that a small part of her was envious. But there was no point to lament about unchangeable circumstances. She would push onward as she always had. She wanted to help the world with her magecraft, and there's no better place than Chaldea. So what if she couldn't supply her future servant with as much mana than the others? She would compensate with other regards. Everyone had their strengths and weaknesses, everyone had their own role to play. The groan jerked Ritsuka's attention towards the bed. Roman was already up, rushing towards Issei's side. As she walked over, Issei was struggling hard with the new information, but he realized he hasn't drink anything. Issei. Water. Can I have some water? He said as he hadn't drink anything. As soon as the glass was in his hand, he chugged it down, not caring if some of it dribbled out of his mouth. Roman. Easy, drink slowly. You can have all the water you want, he smiled as he pouring him another one. Issei. Ah, sorry, I was just so thirsty, he laughed and wiped his mouth. He glanced around the room, browsing over the machines and equipments. So Dr. Roman right? And Fujimaru-san? Ritsuka. Yes, I'm Ritsuka Fujimaru. You can call me Ritsuka. She offered her hand to Issei. Issei. Then you can call me Issei or Ice then. So we're in a hospital. He tried to make sure. Ritsuka. You're currently in Chaldea's medical ward, she answered. Issei. You mentioned Chaldea before, he recalled. Ritsuka. That's right, Chaldea is an organization. Do you remember how you arrived here? She asked. Issei. He paused as he tried to make an excuse on how he got here. He can't say he came from another dimension, so his best solution was I actually don't remember anything. Ritsuka. What? She exclaimed as Roman consulted his laptop again. Issei. All I can remember is my name along with some other things, but on how I got her. Is a blank, the only thing I can recall is meeting you in Kirilight-san, he apologized trying to make him lie believable. Roman. Amnesia. He suggested. I didn't see any symptoms of a concussion, but it could be caused by other reasons. Perhaps a traumatic event could cause it. It might be related to how you were discovered. Ritsuka sighed she didn't expect for this turn this way. His apologetic gaze dismissed any notions of lying. He seemed to be an honest person to Ritsuka. Meanwhile Issei was trying his best poker face. Roman. As of right now, we have no idea who you are. We ran a search for your name, and nothing came up. We also have no idea how you arrived here, you practically appeared out of nowhere as the security cameras didn't see anything. Only the small hums and beeps of the various machineries can be heard for a while. Issei. Then, what does it mean for me? Roman. For now, rest and recover. We'll talk to Director Animesphere about it. Roman's watch beeped as a call came in. It was Professor Lev Laner, Chaldea's chief engineer. Lev. Dr. Archiman. I see Ritsuka Fujimaru is also with you as well. We are about to begin the ray-shifting mission. Could you two come down towards the control center? Roman. Professor Lev. Is it necessary for us to come? All the required personnel should be there, correct? Lev. Team A is ready to go, but Team B and Under are showing slight unease due to their unfamiliarity. I'd prefer for nothing to be amiss, especially concerning the mysterious circumstances of our guest. It should take the two of you no less than 2 minutes to arrive from the medical ward, doctor. The call ended. Ritsuka's heart pounded against her chest. The first mission was just moments away from starting. Her excitement dwarfed her sadness, so what if she couldn't go this time? If this was successful, it'll open the path for future missions. Roman was checked his watch before turning to Issei. Well, I'm sure Professor Lev is just being overly cautious, so we should have some time beforehand. You're probably wondering who exactly we are. There's no real point in keeping it a secret since you're here now, and there's a high chance we'll be looking to recruit you. Issei. Recruit me? What exactly does Chaldea do? He began to be cautious. Wondering what this organization does. Roman. In short, we're an organization of magic users seeking to protect humanity's future, he explained. Issei. Magic, huh? He murmured it seems they know about magic, but protecting humanity future. Ritsuka. You're not going to ask if magic is real or not? She asked. Magecraft was hidden from the general public after all. Issei. Magic, well, to be honest, it seems I still remember about magic, but I don't think I can use it in the moment. He said since it is true, he doesn't know magic, but doesn't know if this dimension's magic is different, while he glanced down on his left arm. Roman. We did have a theory that you were a possible magus, he said. You actually qualify to become one of our candidates for missions like one you just heard about. For example, Ritsuka here is a candidate. She wasn't assigned to this mission because she just arrived before you did. Issei, is that so? Do you think I can help? I mean, maybe my helping my memories might come back, and I'm not sure if I can use magic perfectly. Ritsuka. Issei, it's fine. I know everything must be confusing for you right now. Our first priority is your recovery. Then we'll talk about your options, okay? Just rest here now, and we'll check on you later. A rumble shook the walls as the lights went out, and all the machines died along with it. cold sweat laced her forehead. The mission was about to start. Why are these random complications happening today? I'm in a power failure right now, he exclaimed. Chaldea shouldn't have any power outages. He stumbled towards his laptop in the midst of the darkness. Even the wireless connection is down. I can't seem to access any controls from here. Alarms startled everyone. Emergency alert. Fires have broken out in the central power plant and central control room. The central division bulkhead will close within 240 seconds. Ritsuka. We need to get down to control room now. Issei, it's probably safer for you to remain here, but… Issei. No. I'll help. I think I recovered enough to move. Please let me help. He leapt off the bed and began to take off the bandages around him and took a Chaldea shirt without buttoning it up, leaving him with a red shirt. There was no time to dispute otherwise. The three of them rushed outside and down the corridor. The masters. The director. Mashu. Please let them be safe. They have to be safe. They must be safe. It was an eternity before they reached the main door towards the control room, and Ritsuka couldn't suppress her gasp. The entire room was in shambles, chunks of debris littered the area like a spilled trash can. Ritsuka coughed, covering her mouth with her arm as sweat dripped down from her forehead. A sea of flames enveloped everything, dyeing the world in a bloody red. The billowing smoke seared her eyes and nose. Only Chaldea's, the replica of the world used to observe the singularities, was unharmed in the midst of it all. Roman. This much destruction, a possible act of sabotage. He murmured. Ritsuka. Sabotage. What would anyone stand to gain from doing this? She yelled, clenching her fists. Warning. Insufficient power generation. Unable to automatically switch to reserve power supply. Personnel, please manually switch to reserve. Roman. This isn't good, we can't afford to let the light of Chaldea's go out. He started to run back outside. I'll head to the basement power plant. The two of you get to some place safe. It was only Ritsuka and Issei left in the room, but neither of them had no desire to leave. There must be something else they can do. Issei. What about survivors? He asked as he remembered the girl named Ophelia as he was scanning the room, as he didn't need to shield his eyes from the smoke. Ritsuka. We can check. There has to be some. There must be some. Ritsuka and Issei navigated through the treacherous terrain of burning debris as they descended into the middle of the room. 180 seconds left until the bulkhead closes for the central room. Ritsuka, the masters. She gasped. No, why? Why? Her cheeks were wet and sticky at the sight of the cybernetic coffins, the ones designed to safeguard and facilitate the candidate masters during ray shifting. The people inside were unmoving as if they were undergoing funeral rites. This will not be a graveyard for them. Ray shift system transferring to the final stage. Setting coordinates. January 30th, 2004 C. Fuyuki, Japan. Masters, please prepare for the final adjustments. Issei. Ritsuka. Over here. It's Mash, she needs help. He pointed to a familiar pink-haired girl with a white furry creature at her side. Ritsuka. No, please, not her. Ritsuka rushed over, stumbling over loose rocks before righting herself midway. Mashu. She knelt down, grasping the hands of her friend. It was cold as the snow outside of Chaldea. Mash. Ritsuka-senpai, Hyoudou-san. Ritsuka. It's okay, Issei and I will help you. You'll be okay, Mashu. You'll be fine. She sniffed and willing herself to ignore the growing red pool coming from Mashu's torso. Mashu would be fine if there wasn't a giant pillar crushing the lower half of her body. We have to get this off of you somehow. Issei attempted to lift the pillar before growing from the pain. It was heated by the intense fire. Issei ignored the intense heat because he was a pure dragon, while Ritsuka was surprised that he could handle the intense heat as she tore her uniform and wrapped it around her hands. There was no time to preserve modesty. Ritsuka and Issei took their places at opposite sides, attempting to lift the pillar just enough so Mashu can move out. Mashu. No, it's too late for me. Please get to safety. Please. She pleaded but both of them refused. Ritsuka. We will never leave anyone behind. She yelled, trying again to lift the pillar. It was too heavy, too large. A glow drew her attention towards Issei, who had a red gauntlet on his left arm as she gasped. Issei. There's no way in hell I'll leave anyone behind. Let's go, boosted gear. He yelled as the gauntlet gem began to glow and say boost as he begins to lift up the pillar with superhuman strength. That surprised both of them as Ritsuka was about to question it, but she focused on getting Mashu out. Attention, the condition of Chaldea's has changed. Humanity's survival on Earth for the next 100 years cannot be confirmed. The future of humanity cannot be guaranteed. Mash, Chaldea's. No, she whispered. As Ritsuka followed her gaze towards the model. Her heart plummeted. Instead of a serene blue as the model was before, it was now bright orange. The world itself was engulfed in a fiery orange. Was all of their hopes were to be incinerated away here? The central bulkhead will now be sealed. The heavy doors of their entrance locked down, trapping them inside. Mashu. Sorry. Everyone. Because of me, she apologized even though they finally got Mashu out they were too late. Ritsuka. No, it's not your fault, Mashu. Never think that, she said, as Issei nodded too. They abandoned their attempts to get to the door and settling down on opposite sides next to Mashu. Issei. At least we were able to get you out of there, we'll find a way out somehow, he reassured as he looked at his boosted gear and thought of blowing a hole on the door and get out. Scanning for qualified masters within the area. Mashu. Did you know that you can't see the sky here in Chaldea? She said, getting Issei attention. Chaldea was located within the alpine tundra of the mountains, 6,000 meters above sea level after all. Ritsuka. Yeah. I promised that I'll show you the sky one day, didn't I, Mashu? She said, taking one of Mashu's hand in hers. Issei. I know the sky is beautiful, it never stops being beautiful, you know. Issei smiled and, reaching out to Mashu's other hand. When you get to see it, you'll be happy. Confirmed masters within area, Designee 48 and unknown Designee. Mashu. Thank you everyone. I'm glad to have met you too. Issei couldn't hold back it any longer, the feeling of being useless. Again, someone else was going to die in front of him and he couldn't do anything. Why was he weak? What was all of his training for? The last thing Issei remembered was the flaming chunk of the roof falling downwards towards them. The corner of his eyes saw movement as Ritsuka stood in front of him and Mashu. No, not her too. Commencing ray shift program. Beginning Spiritron conversion. Ray shift successful. Unknown location. The last and first thing he saw was fire. He groaned as he rose on his feet, his nose crinkled. The air was intoxicated with ashes and death. This was too familiar of a smell. He stepped on the long balcony, mindful of his footing. It was just as dirty and tainted by soot as everything else in this house. Broken remnants of sliding doors and tatami mats told him that this was once a Japanese home. From there he peered outside into the backyard with caution. Issei. It almost feels like my grandparents' house, but with everything destroyed, he looked at more burning houses were torn asunder and aflamed. It was like looking at street lamps of the burning hells they carved into the night sky and dyed it malicious crimson. There was so much destruction. If this entire block was destroyed, then there was little doubt to what happened to the rest of the town. He needed to figure out what happened. He was in Chaldea. The last thing he remembered was that gigantic rock. He needed to protect both of them. Then it was all a blank. Issei. Let out a sigh. I guess it's time for the emergency suitcase. He said while beginning to take something out from the boosted gear. It was a black suitcase as began to pop it open. To his relief there was his emergency supplies as he pulled out a revolver with double barrel as he began to examine the bullets. Some were normal bullets, but there were others with red, blue, yellow lines around the bullet with a symbol on the back. He nodded as he began to place his revolver in his holster. Well, having the bullets ready in containers. He took out at least 3 phoenix tears. Leaving only 7 behind as he took out another weapon, and it was Intetsu, his grandfather's sword. As he jumped off onto the ground, a loud sound crackled into the night. His eyes snapping back and forth. He had no idea what that was. This roar, it was bestial, full of rage and wrath. The ground shuddered and the walls trembled. Thunderous footsteps echoed throughout the street. Something huge, no gigantic, was coming. Issei instinct shouted at him. Whatever it was, it would be hostile. A cold sweat broke out on Issei's forehead as he readied himself for anything as a meteor crashed into the backyard, sending chunks of dead grass and dirt everywhere. The shed shook with the impact. Parts of what's left of the roof came tumbling down. Ooh, the dust settled, revealing the horror inside. Red eyes, there was no emotion in them besides violence, anger, destruction. Issei grimaced as he saw the monster's physique. It was as if someone carved muscles out of a mountainside. A gigantic and jagged slab of stone fit inside its chiseled hand. Issei. You got to be kidding me. With before he knew it, the monster itself jumped so high in the air, causing Issei to pull out his revolver and shot it as an explosion happened when they impact, causing it to have a hole in its stomach and roll back from the ground. Note to self. Blast bullets are very power. I have to thank Edelchan for inputting ruins into them. He said before checking his revolver. As the dirt beginning to clear, Issei saw the monster dead, but then its eye began to glow and the injury started to regenerate. It's like he came back to life. Then let out another roar. Ooh, he set his eyes on Issei, and then in the burst of speed, he appeared right in front of Issei's side, prepared to swing down. But in a quick instinct, Issei jumped a step back, but then the monster took a side slash, causing Issei to duck as the monster raised his sword again for a down slash as Issei took a movement to the side. Issei. Damn, you're really strong. Those moves would really kill me in one shot. He took several hits with his sword, continued to block before being flown back while holding his sword and checking on it. It really is strong as steel. Hasn't even had a scratch on it. Are you even trying? That insult caused that monster to growl. Well, then it's time to show you how strong I am. Blade steel. And with that Issei began to mimic the same speed to the monster, and they had to strike it with powerful slashes, causing the monster to be surprised, but then it took another slash, but Issei ducked and started to cut right through its skin and body slices in half. As Issei took another step away before the same thing happened again, its eyes began to glow red and start getting even angrier. Issei. How the hell are you still standing? He said as he starts parrying the blows until he was launched up to the air by a punch that made him cough blood from such a blow. Damn, he doesn't just fight with a sword. He fights hand to hand. Before making a magic circle appear under his feet as he charges up with red light crackling around him as he jet himself toward the monster like a thunderbolt and cut his body in half. As he begins to move away and start running on the building's rooftop. That should give me some time. How the hell is he still alive though I killed him 3 times? Hey Drake, wake up. He shouted to his companion from the gauntlet as a voice could be heard. Drake. What's wrong, partner? I've been sleeping until I figured out what happened to the boosted gear. Wait, where the hell are we? Weren't we in the hospital? Said the dragon from Issei's own eyes, and he couldn't believe where the hell they are until that monster appeared again trying to chase him down. And partner, why are you fighting Hercules? Issei. Good to see that you're awake, buddy. I actually have some questions. Can I use the balance breaker, and what do you mean by Hercules? Don't tell me I've been fighting Hercules. He said, beginning to avoid throw debris. Greg. Yes partner, you've been fighting Hercules. So I'll tell you what happened to the boosted gear in the meantime, just keep avoiding his attacks. Said the dragon as he begins to prepare himself for the explanation. Will partner to start. You can't use the balance breaker. Issei. Wait, are you serious? I can't use balance break, that's literally my thing. Exclaimed the teen in disbelief. He can't use balance breaker. If he had it, he could have possibly ended this guy easily. Greg. Yes, but there's more. Do you remember the abilities of Triana? Explained the dragon. Issei. You're talking about Triana where I switched to bishop, knight, rook, queen, right? What about them? Greg. Well, it seems you have the ability into the boosted gear along with another. I'll explain it to you in order. You have boost, transfer, divide, jet, impact, blaster, mana burst, penetrate. Are the only abilities you have, although I don't know what mana burst is, though, so use them wisely. Issei. I see, so I have those abilities, huh? Well, those will be very useful for me right now. He said as Hercules appeared right in front of him and prepared to swing at him, but he jumped to the side. I guess it's my turn. Well, after that checkup, I secretly used the Phoenix to heal myself up. And told the doctor I needed to go to the bathroom. After I was done with my business, I met 7 people with diving suits and they talked about some type of ray shifting and said about me becoming a master. I really didn't get it, but then all of a sudden someone sabotaged the ray shifting. I helped Ritsuka by lifting a pillar that was squashing Mashu, and now we're here fighting who you say is Hercules. Greg. That a lot to take in, partner, but what do they mean by master? Is it really important? Issei. I actually have no idea, Drake. They seemed to be very excited and they said I had a 100% chance of being a success, not knowing much before Hercules appeared and swinging down as Issei used Intetsu to block as Hercules continued to slam his sword down to break it, but Intetsu was holding strong. Grrr. Hey Drake, any possibility on how I can win? Greg. Well partner, do you remember the legend of Hercules? Issei. Yeah, if I remember he completed 12 labors, right? He said, before Hercules raised his sword again, giving Issei the chance to dash back and listen to the next house as Hercules broke the roof and crumbled down. That should buy me a little bit more. So what about them? He said, beginning to run again. Greg. You have to kill him 12 times, partner. His ability, God Hand, but I recommend you to switch weapons right now. You use your best element with Intetsu, which means you can't use it anymore. Issei. Alright, how many times have I killed him? 3 times. Damn, not enough, he said as he put Intetsu back to the boosted gear. Greg. It's a good thing you add your scale onto your sword, since your body was made from the flesh of Great Red, which makes them more durable and powerful, but none come close to Brynhildr, said the dragon as he boosting his partner. Issei. Yeah, you're right, got that Azazel to power than me. I doubt I could even cut through him. He said, bring 2 swords that are Ascalon and Leviathan in each of his hands as he play his music from his phone. He stood there as Hercules bursted right through in front of him, swinging down, and Issei in a quick reaction blocked with both swords, pushing him back and starts using the force to push him a couple feet away. Hercules. Ooh, let out a roar as Issei gripped his swords tightly, ready to start round 2. Issei begins to charge, and striking Hercules as he blocked their clash, made sparks as Issei makes a desperate attempt on not getting killed, sometimes avoiding his strikes or blocking. Until Hercules jammed his sword down to the ground, causing Issei to step on it and ready to strike, but was off guard when he used more hand-to-hand combat, only hitting the sword and knocking him a few steps away. Issei. Damn, I think he doesn't see me as a weakling anymore. And now thinks I'm dangerous. Well, it's natural. I was able to cut 3 of his lives. Issei stabbed Ascalon to the ground and took out his revolver and shot 3 shots before beginning to reload, as the smoke shows Hercules alright. Blast bullets don't work anymore, huh? Hercules began to run towards Issei, catching up speed and clash onto Issei, who blocked as he was being pushed back. Then thrown up to the air. Damn it, boosted gear blaster. He shouted just in time as Isis Gauntlet turned into a cannon as Hercules appeared right in front of him in the sky, then shot a dragon shot point blank, but in the recon he was thrown back to the ground. Alright, that wasn't a good idea. But hey, that's 4, Issei said as he got up from the ground, noticing the dead Hercules, who began to get up again. Hercules continued to strike Issei and now holding him, who was having his swords in a cross and holding the axe sword back before Hercules kicked him back with his feet, causing Issei to start growling and making both swords start glowing as Leviathan started burning brightly and start releasing fire. Issei charged in, starting with rapid fire shots for his stomach, leaving burn marks, then a down slash that stuck to his skin before Issei started immutable fire in the inside, cutting right through while going up and using Hercules' shoulder to jet himself away. Issei. Haha, I gotta beat this guy really fast. 5, which means 7 left. He said, as Ascalon begins to bright blue. This is it, let's see if freezing slows you down. Right when he said that, Hercules came again as he blocked with Leviathan before jamming Ascalon down to his stomach before pushing right through as a burst of ice appeared from his back as he begins to pull upwards as the cut starts to burst ice from the stomach, make that 6. Issei was getting tired as the battle was being too much. He could feel his arms losing strength, but the only reason he's alive right now is because of his battle instincts that have grown in battle time and time again. He fought the strongest of enemies, and he's still standing. He looked at Hercules, who had recovered from the injury. Issei put Leviathan back to the boosted gear as he held Ascalon, and the sword began to glow. Greg. Partner, are you sure of using it now? Shouted to his partner, knowing that using this technique would help him, but get him even more tried. Issei. Drake, I cannot back down from this fight, and this is the only way, trust me, he said as he began to let Ascalon to glow brightly before the sword turned into a great sword around 3.5 meters long, and inscribed on the side of the sword is its name. The sword has various portions of varying thickness and angles, with sections of the blade resembling an axe, a razor and saw, with spikes and a wire position on it. Let go, great Ascalon. He slashed as the wind blew towards Hercules as he stood there. The clash of titans has been gone. Unknown location. The woman with black armor stood waiting for the Chaldea to arrive, but suddenly she felt fear for a powerful dragon slayer power near Berserker territory as she looked into that direction. What is this? Are you a servant? No, you're human. Wait, no, you're a dragon. With Ritsuka and Mashu together with Olga and Ku, but now they're following him. Who said no to go where Berserker is, but no, he changed his mind and now they're head towards that direction. Ritsuka. Ku, can you tell us why we're heading towards Berserker when you just said that we can't? She shouted at, and she was worried about Issei, who is missing and probably far away from them. Ku. I know what's said, but whatever is fighting Berserker is strong. I think this thing is killing him, he said, continuing to run. Mashu. Senpai, I have a strange feeling that what fight is close to the heroic spirit within me. It's hard to explain, she said, not understanding this strange connection. Olga. Whatever it is, I believe it will be useful for us to have its help. If it can defeat a Berserker, then we need all the help we can get. As the 4 arrived where they heard the clash of blades, Ritsuka and Mashu could not believe what they are seeing right in front of them. It was Issei fight Berserker with huge buster sword and swinging it like a master against a man that looks like he was made of stone and huge. Olga. Is that a servant? She asked in confusion because that person had a Chaldea uniform as she was surprised by the amount of power, but that quickly changed into disbelief on what Ritsuka word. Ritsuka. No, that Issei, she said, surprised by Issei fighting Berserker in equal par. Olga. You can't be serious that the mysterious person who arrived at Chaldea. That him, she couldn't believe what she is watching right now. Mashu. Is he like me, a demi-servant? She said, thinking that might be case but was wrong by Roman words. Roman, connection. No, he's not a servant, but he has the odd of a dragon that not all his power is increased even 10 sec that passed. This is incredible, he said as a mechanic was reading Issei. Everyone continued to watch the battle between titans. Back with Issei. Issei was doing everything he can to kill his 6 live before Great Ascalon time limit is over, so Issei used its holy power as it began to glow a bright blue as a flash happened as the sound of Varum could be heard as everyone saw how Issei cut his body in a sideways along with cutting his axe sword in half as everyone took some steps away as he was panting and sweating. Issei. Damn, now it's 5, he said as he was trying to gain his strength, but he did not notice that Ritsuka and Mashu were heading towards him, congratulating him for defeating Hercules. Ritsuka. Issei, you're alive. I'm so glad to see you. But how are you able to lift such a big sword? Mashu. That amazing Issei-senpai. They both were impressed, but Issei had a face of panic and began to shout at them. Issei. What are you guys doing here? Get out, it's still not safe. He still has 5 lives left. But he was too late. Hercules regenerated and appeared in a flash in front of them. Even with a broken half sword he began to start getting ready to slice them. Ritsuka, mind. I'm going to die. She was internally panicking. She was going to die. That would certainly kill her. Mashu. I won't make it in time. I can't defend that. She tried desperately to at least block the attack for her senpai and for herself. But then all of a sudden a clash happened and a yell of pain could be heard, and it was none other than Issei who was using his left arm to block the sword, but the edge of the sword was hitting his shoulder. Everyone looked in shock on how quick Issei reacted as he yelled, pulling his left arm back ready to punch him. Issei. Damn it, you fucker. Take this impact. He began to slam his fist against the stomach of Hercules, then all of a sudden something punched a hole directly towards his stomach and blasting him away like a ragdoll. As he began to hold the sword like a cane as it turned back to normal Ascalon. Holy shit. I had no idea combining impact with penetrate could actually do that. Now I'm scared to use that again. He was internally panicking. What he used was a combination of impact and penetrate. Ritsuka. Issei, are you alright? She was extremely worried for Issei's right shoulder. Issei. I'll be fine, I just have to hold on a little bit longer. I'll be able to kill him since I've now killed 4 of his lives. Goo. Actually 2 lives, me and a certain archer took care of the 2 other lives, so you have to kill 2 times and he'll be dead. Issei. Are you serious? That's a relief. I thought I had to kill him 4 times and I was running out of weapons. I think everything will be a. He was cut off as he instantly used his sword to guard himself, but then was flown back up to the air like a baseball. Gah. Goo. Ah, the kid just got launched. He spoke in surprise, seeing Hercules get back up again and starting to launch the kid like a baseball. Then focus on Hercules, but he completely ignored them and just followed the direction on where he launched Issei. They all had a sigh of relief, but they instantly began to follow him. They couldn't leave Issei to fight alone. Meanwhile with Issei. He was currently being launched in the air as he was screaming, as that force really did a number on his arm again. He could feel his arm being torn apart. Issei. Damn it, I think this guy won't even stop unless I kill him. He knowing that Hercules is going to keep coming after. Greg. Partner, get ready for impact. Wait, partner, stretch your hands. Try to grab it in time. Shouted his partner as he did as instructed before feeling like he grabbed something and felt like he was being pulled back, but then he was holding something. It was none other than a chain. Issei. This is the chain. What are chains doing here? Wait, there's statues here. What the hell is this place? He said as he began to drop himself off and just look at the statues before a memory crossed his mind. Ha, kind of reminds me of Medusa. Greg. You're right, partner, it does feel similar. It feels like everyone was turned to stone. Issei. You know she probably didn't do anything wrong. If I remember from the story, wasn't she technically raped by Poseidon? And she was the only one to receive punishment by Athena. Greg. It's true, partner, she was cursed and then was turned into a monster. Issei. Oh, Greg, you're not disgusted by her? Greg. Nah, technically snakes and dragons are kind of related, so I can sort of understand. Issei. LC. He began to hear the roar come closer. It seems Hercules is coming. I made it through every battle that was put on my way. I've tried to overcome, but it's not enough. I need to push myself even further. I may be a failure, but I'll never be broken. He shouted towards his opponent right in front of him. As he was ready to fight Hercules until something pink rushed before his eyes. It was a pink-haired woman wearing black outfit. Her hands wielded some chains. The giant's axe were wrapped by the chains. With a struggle, she stomped her feet. She knocked Hercules away by several meters through the remains of the neighboring houses. Issei was surprised. He wasn't sure what it was about her that entranced him. Was it her strength? Her sexy body that would attract anyone? Was it because of the mysterious mask that was hiding her eyes? Or was it her appearance? There's no doubt of it, she was beautiful. Ritsuka and Mashu were attractive, but this woman was beyond that. The blindfolded girls reminded him of a legend, as both of them had their face met each. And she asked, I ask of you, are you my master? Issei. Am your what? He shouted confusedly as he stared at her without knowing a mark was starting to appear on his right hand that has the appears of a dragon. We currently see Issei together with a woman with pink hair staring at each other. Before long Issei took his gun out and shot Hercules' leg with some frost bullets, keeping him put and turned to woman. Issei. What are you talking about? Master. He said, not understanding what going on. Pink woman. She tilts her head to a side. You have command seals, do you not? In accordance of your summon. I have come to assist you as your servant. Issei. He begins to scratch his head. Look, I now you're not one of my peerage members, so I don't know what you're talk. Hercules. He broke free from the ice on his leg as it stared at Issei with anger as it let out a roar ooh. As crimson veins pulsated and sizzled throughout its blackened muscles. There was no sympathy or warmth in its gnarled face. Issei. You really want to kill me, huh? Bring it on. He shouted. Pink woman. An enemy, but this form, the woman frowned. Her chain rattled as she tightened them. What kind of servant has such malicious energy? Master, please retreat to a safer location. Without waiting for his reply, she dashed forward. As growl could be heard as her weapons grinded against Hercules' skin. She continued to strike at Hercules and evade his attack like an acrobatic as her chain were wrapped against him, as Hercules was suddenly pulled towards a pole as he roared where echoed like thunder. His eyes widened as he clenched around the chains and was ready to pull, but was shot on the by Issei gun, as each bullet were specially designed with magic attributes. Issei. Don't think she the only one. He continued to shoot Hercules as he pulled his sword Brynhildr, also known as Nephilim by the angels and fallen angels. When he held the sword he saw a mark on his hand as he looked carefully. What are these? Pink woman. She has appeared next to him as the chains were wrapped around Hercules, who tried to free himself as she looks at the command seals. So you are my master, she said, but. A roar was heard as Hercules ripped the chains around him as he looked at them, but then a bang was heard, and Hercules was covered in debris as it was Issei who shot a pillar that supported the house and collapsed on him. Issei. He turned to see the pink-hair girl. That should buy us some time. Now tell me. What do you mean by me being your master? Who are you and is there any possibility that you can kill him once? Pink woman. Your command seals show that you're my master, she said as she holds Issei's right hand that reveals a red dragon tattoo. Who I am, you may call me Rider and my name. Issei. If you don't want to then don't say it, I don't want to pressure you, he said to the pink-haired woman while examining the tattoo on his hand. Rider. No, she says looking at Hercules who trying to get the rumble off him. We usually keep our names secret so that enemy servants don't know our weaknesses and abilities, but in this situation, it doesn't make sense to hide it. She spoke softly. Excuse my hesitation. It's just that my identity is somewhat special, she told him, remaining silent, showing a small sign of nerves about revealing who she is, thus creating a contrast with his neutral and silent behavior. I am Gorgona, also called Medusa. Issei. Oh. Wait. Are you serious? Now I understand your mask, it's because of your eyes. However, to the bewilderment of Medusa. Issei took the news very calmly, unlike how she expected him to react, perhaps exalted, with fear and with caution not to see her in the face. Medusa. Aren't you scared? Issei. Well, I was certainly surprised to know that you are Medusa, but not to the point of being afraid of you. In fact, I think that your rider is the one who is afraid of herself, and that's why you wear that mask. You don't want to hurt someone with your eyes, am I wrong? Medusa. Won't you call me by my name? Issei. If you want that I will do it, however, I can assume that you want to be called as a rider. After finishing speaking, the two were silent, Issei with a smile and Medusa with an expression of surprise, clearly identified thanks to the fact that her mouth opened and closed, then holding her hand together. Medusa. Thank you, she said, grateful from the bottom of her heart that Issei is a benevolent master who could identify her displeasure with her name. But that sweet moment was ruined by Hercules, who jumped middle-air to smash both, but they quickly reacted and jumped back as Hercules moved to Issei, who desperately avoid Hercules swinging, while blocking it with Brynhildr, as Issei remembers who Rider is, and hopes they have a connection to reach one and another. Issei, connection. Rider, can you hear me? Medusa, connection. Of course, master. Issei, connection. Listen up, can you perhaps turn him into stone by any chance with your eyes, he said, hoping that there a chance on killing Hercules, instead of using the Excalibur fragments to release a powerful blow like a full-power Longinus smasher. Medusa, connection. I'll only be able to slow him down and turn him into stone, but it will take time for the ability to affect him. Issei, connection. Please use it. Take out his second life, then I'll handle the last one. Medusa nodded before clipping off her blindfold, revealing a mark on her forehead as she opens her eyes looking at Hercules, who was frozen for a second before the petrification began to start to affect his hand slowly. Issei, who noticed it was relived by Hercules turning into stone, but noticed the effect taken time, and before anything Hercules continued to attack, even if his body was turning into stone. Issei. Damn, you're still not surrendering. Hercules. Ooh. He continues to fight Issei with his axe swords as their weapon clash. It can be seen how Issei was getting tried and making few mistakes that end with some cuts. Issei, mind. Damned it, I'm too tried, I can't keep going. Drag anyway on making Rider eyes stronger. Drag, mind. Partner, you can boost her, but once you do you'll get even tired, but it's your best bet right now. Issei, mind. Understood. Meanwhile, as they were fight, Medusa was supporting Issei by using her chain on restraining Hercules' movement as Issei fight him. Issei, connection. Rider, come to me, I'll give you a boost to finish him. Medusa, connection. Understood, master. Just like that, Issei used blade steel and copy his movement, then push him to use a jet boost punch to push him back a few meters as Issei went near Medusa fast like a jet with mana burst as he places a hand on Medusa's shoulder. Drag. Transfer. The voice of Drag surprised Medusa, but she then felt a lot of power as she understood what her master wish, so use her ability again, her mystic eye of petrification. As Hercules saw Medusa this time, his hand that was turning into stone has quickened its progress as Hercules lets out a roar as he uses all his strength to reach Issei and Medusa, but was turned into stone as the both of them move away from the charging statue. Issei. Finally, his down to one probably, he said while walking away from the statue as Medusa stared at the statue before after her master. But a few seconds the sound of crack were heard, they turned around and were frozen to see Hercules' eye out for the stone as her burst as stone pieces were thrown around as Hercules began to strike Medusa. In a moment as Issei saw the charging Hercules as Issei raised Brynhildr into a position as rush forward with mana burst and with gritted teeth he was near Hercules before stabbing his sword towards him in a holy light that struck his left upper body. Issei. Take that, ha damn, I'm tried, he said as he noticed how the darkness of Hercules' body disappeared and now was turning into light dust as he was staring at Issei as heard someone voice. Hercules. I gift you my strength, were the only thing Issei heard as the small light dust entered Brynhildr green light and absorbed them. Issei stood there until the voice of Ritsuka, Mashu, and that white hair girl and man that looks like a wizard were going to speak to him, but Issei tipped forward and was going to fall, but Medusa caught him, having Issei head land on her breasts as she gently caresses his hair. 2 hours later. Issei was having a dream. He was standing there watching Hercules cries for his family, then an image of him kill the Lernian Hydra, shot an arrow 9 times that surprised Issei, and he was leaving the dream with the name of skill in his head. And just like that, Issei got up from what seemed to be the floor and surprised everyone who were around him as they all calmed down when it was just Issei waking up. Issei began to look at a near mirror and noticed that his chest was exposed and was bandaged up as he noticed Ritsuka go over towards him. Ritsuka. It's all we can do for you, she sighed. Healing magecraft has its own limitations, so try not to overexert yourself. We don't have much supplies either, otherwise I'd do more. Olga. Agreed, there are not many ways on healing such wounds, she said while looking at the cuts Hercules has done. Issei. Thanks, Ritsuka and miss. He rotated his shoulder. It was stiff, but it no longer pained him to move. His then look at Olga, since he has only seen her when he was fighting Hercules. Olga. The name is Olga Marian Hemisphere, the director of Chaldea. It's a pleasure to meet you, Hyoudou, she said in authority tone. Issei. Look at Ritsuka injures, can't you heal your own injuries? Ritsuka. She shook her head, gesturing to her clothes. I could, but my healing abilities are limited to the mystic coat I'm wearing. You can see it's not in the most perfect condition. Your injuries are more important than mine. Issei. He couldn't see the extent of the damage within the gloom, but he doubted that they couldn't spare one more use for her. But doesn't it hurt? Issei asked. Ritsuka. Even if I said it did, what would that change? She laughed. The hollowness of it mirrored the emptiness of the hallways. Just try to not fight servants head on again. Please. I don't want anyone else hurt. Issei knew that was an impossible request, and the hypocrisy of it shone on them. He cared more about Ritsuka's injuries over his. The opposite was true for her. Ku. Sorry to say this, but he asked to fight again. He's our best shot on the winning against her. He appeared, surprising Issei, Ritsuka, Olga, and Mashu. Mashu? What makes you say that, Mr. Ku? She said curiously while Fu was on her shoulders. Ku. Simple, this kid has a dragon slayer sword and it's the only weapon that could actually scratch her. Not to mention this kid has proven that he's a match against servants. Issei. Sorry, but what do you mean by her? I don't understand what's going on. Olga. We are trying to resolve this singularity by either retrieving this Holy Grail or solving this problem, and from what Kuchulin has said, the saber has protecting the Holy Grail. Issei. I see. Wait, Kuchulin. Aren't you that Celtic warrior with a spear? Why do you have a staff? he said, remembering reading legends about heroes. Who? All I can say is blame the holy grail I've been summoning into a caster. Issei. Caster saber weight rear rider. He said, trying to look for his servant, but all of a sudden she appeared. Medusa. Apologies master, I was surveilling the area in case for incoming enemies, she said. Issei. Don't worry, that I'm just glad to see you're alright. Now then, can you guys explain to me what caster saber? I'm kind of new to all this. Olga sighed as she begins to explain the different classes and what each represents, including explaining more about servants that surprised Issei and Drake, who is listening to the conversation. After finishing our class course on the explanation of servants, the throne of heroes, and their main goal is to fight the saber, get the holy grail and resolve the singularity. We currently have Issei and Ritsuka up in the roof watching the buildings, and we're getting ready for their next fight. Issei. I guess we're gonna fight the saber, and Olga said that the saber class is the strongest, so we're really going to have a hard fight. I guess there's no avoiding on getting injury. Ritsuka. Yeah, there's no way for both of us to avoid getting hurt. Not with our mission, she sighed, and she walked towards the bar. It was one of the few that were still intact in the high school they had taken shelter in. But even so, I still wish for a way that no one has to suffer more. Maybe, that's why I'm a failure as a master and magus. Issei. But isn't that natural? He blurted, not understand what Ritsuka meant. I don't see how you could be wrong for thinking otherwise. Ritsuka nodded to them. She turned to Issei. As Issei hated how brittle her smile could become. In order to advance as a magus, we have to prepare for every possibility. There could never be any progress without sacrifice. Pain and suffering means nothing in the long run. Aside from severe taboos, anything is allowed as long as magecraft is advanced. Even death. Issei, but that Issei was sure surprised by how the magic of this world is so different. He wanted to say that it was wrong. That the ends could not always justify the usage of drastic means, but was it any different than what he had already done? He'd sought power, no matter the cost, for the sake of others. Ritsuka. Perhaps magecraft was never truly meant to help people. Perhaps nothing good could come through whimsical methods, she shuddered. Perhaps that's why I am lacking. When I met the other masters, the ones who were supposed to go on this mission, I realized how much of a difference there was between them and me. They were from great lineages, with decades or even centuries of research behind their magecraft. She clenched her sleeves, the color faded from her knuckles. Who was I to compare to them? I was just an ordinary girl who didn't care about searching for the root or gaining prestige. I could barely do rudimentary magecraft, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do was to help people. I thought that if I just did my best, it wouldn't matter that I was a good magus or not, but look at us right now. Ritsuka choked back a sob. We're the only two masters left, Issei. Issei looked at his hand and remember when Dr. Roman had confirmed that the other masters were comatose due to the incident. They might not recover if Chaldea can't contact the outside world. Communications were cut off, so they had no choice but to press on with the Rayshift mission. The fact that they hadn't mentioned the status of other staff was telling enough. Ritsuka. What if the reason why Mashu can't use her noble phantasm properly is my fault? Was it because I wasn't strong enough as a master? I don't even know how to help Mashu, so how am I supposed to help save humanity like this? Ritsuka's eyes pleaded with Issei, beckoning him to say otherwise. I shouldn't have been a master, she announced, eyes downcast as she backpedaled until she hit the wall. I shouldn't be here. It should have been someone else. Someone else would have done a better job. Ritsuka's knees crumbled and she slid down to the floor. The light shone her quivering shoulders. They were smaller than Issei had thought. He chased after her back ever since waking in Chaldea. He thought they were strong enough to endure the weight of the mission. That it would be fine if he could walk the path she took. He was wrong. No shoulders were wide enough to bear the fate of humanity's future. And he should know since he's been carrying the supernatural all this time himself. Issei realized Ritsuka was no different than him. Just as Ritsuka expressed doubts on her abilities, he too doubted his potential. He sometimes asked himself if he was strong enough. Is all his training worth it? He had many doubts. Both of them thought it would be fine if they did anything to prove that they were capable. They were directionless, lost in the fog of their own insecurities. But that changed for him since the people around him started to share that burden with him. Issei walked towards her as his hand reached out, brushing aside her messy bangs, untangling loose debris from her hair. Her revealed cheeks glistened under the moonlight, yet her tears did little to wash away the traces of the battlefield. Issei grabbed a clean towel and began to scrub at her face. She didn't reject his care. But noticed how she continued to belittle herself. Issei was annoyed by that. Now I understands why Valerie did this to him. He started to pull her cheeks and brought her face towards him. Ritsuka. Ow ow ow. Issei, what are you? Issei. You know, Ritsuka, I don't know much about magecraft. Then again, I don't know much about anything from this, Issei chuckled while he continued to pull her cheeks. If you think the other masters are so amazing, it's fine. But don't you think you're being too unfair on yourself? Ritsuka. That's because you haven't seen what the real Magi can do. She snapped. If they were here, they would have saved more people. If they were here, they would have been better, capable. Issei. But I have seen what one Magus has done. He interjected. I've seen her walk into the wreckage of burning debris without hesitation. All for the small chance that someone could be alive. Issei. Look into her eyes. I've seen her rush to treat a reckless idiot without any regards to her own injuries. You're too hard on yourself, Ritsuka. There may be a lot at stake right now, but we can only do what we can. We're the only ones who can. Maybe you think yourself to be a terrible Magus, but you're stronger than you think. Your path isn't wrong. Issei started to let go of her cheeks and hold her hands with both of his. We're in the same boat, you know. It's going to be a long journey, but no one said you had to do it alone, right, Ritsuka? Ritsuka sniffed, blinking back tears. He didn't need to hear a reply. He knew it when the light in her eyes brightened the room. Issei was settling his equipment onto the school cafeteria. Olga was already there, one finger tapping a rhythm atop the table. Ritsuka joined him on the opposite side, while Medusa took her place standing behind him. Olga. All finished then, Fujimura, Hyoudou? She asked, one hand brushing aside a lock of her silver hair. Ritsuka. Yeah, director. Where's Mashu? She looked around the cafeteria until the door to the back room opened. Mashu carried out a tray with several cups of ramen and a pot to boil water. Mashu. This was all I could find back there. Her gauntlets clinked together as she folded her hands together and bowed slightly. Issei smiled at her humility, thankful that she was better than before, though he doubted he could forget her bloodstained visage. Ritsuka had told him that she was a demi-servant, a person who took in the powers of a heroic spirit into their body. As a result of her contract, her body healed, and she became the Shielder servant when they were separated during the ray shifting. Ritsuka's earlier remarks hinted that both her and Mashu were unable to unlock Mashu's full power, but her health was all they could ask for. Though, one part of him was grateful for Mashu dressed and wonder if that heroic spirit liked the way it designed her outfit. A certain Galahad started to get annoyed. Issei. No worries. He waved off her apologies and grabbed a cup. He needed to distract his mind. Again. This is the perfect food for a late-night snack. Remember Valerie's love for ramen. Ritsuka. Well, you're not wrong, she said, shaking her head at his gusto. We don't have electricity, huh? How are we going to heat the water? Olga scoffed while she raised her finger, drawing a rune at the bottom of the pot. It glowed red and then the water inside boiled. Mashu, thanks director. She began passing chopsticks to everyone, including Medusa. Rider-san, would you like to eat as well? Medusa. Servants do not require subsistence to sustain themselves, Medusa said before receiving hers. However, I sure my master wishes for me to join all of you. Thank you Miss Kirilight. Medusa looked at Issei who nodded and a smile was traced on her lips. Goo. Oh, if Ryder's getting one too, then pass me one, little lady. A blue circle, inlaid with runes similar to the one Olga drew, expanded on the floor. Castor materialized from it, brushing aside dirt from his fur shawl. Olga. Castor, she pinched the bridge of her nose as she sat her cup down, I assume you managed to mislead the two servants. Goo. Took a while, but they decided to retreat instead of pursuing, Castor said. He stirred the noodles before swallowing them in a single bite. Ritsuka retreat where? Goo. Probably where Saber is, Castor drawled. She knows that there's no real point to chase us when we need to come to her. Issei. So this Saber is like a final boss. He sat up, continuing to slurp at his food. Goo. Right, Castor's red eyes sought him out, you've probably been informed about the remaining servants left in the city. I suppose you already met two of the three. But we're lucky that you took care of Berserker. Issei. So what's their objective? He was only given the barest information on what was happening in the Singularity. There was a war waged with servants in the city, and they needed to find out what went wrong to fix the timeline. Goo. The side of Fayuki's Greater Grail is where the final boss will be. Castor glanced over towards Medusa. It'll be where the enemy Saber is. The other servants shouldn't matter as long as we defeat her, but you can bet your ass that they'll be there now. Olga. Do we know their true identities? Goo. I don't know who the archer servant is. Not a single damn clue about what kind of a hero has so many swords and still be considered an archer. The Berserker servant, well the kid said he was Hercules, but is already out of the picture. Even the enemy Saber had trouble dealing with him. Castor scowled as he pointed to Issei. Boy, you are a lucky man to survive and defeat that guy. Be glad that Hercules lost that ridiculous noble phantasm of his when he got corrupted by the Grail, else you wouldn't have even scratched his skin. Issei. What? He was surprised and almost dropped his wooden chopsticks. Mashu. But Hyoudou-senpai used Ascalon and that other sword on him. She exclaimed. Who? Still the kid was lucky the Greeks' most famous hero, Heracles. Castor snorted. His famed legend of completing 12 labors gave him a ridiculous noble phantasm that granted him several lives, but that kid just cut all of them down with pure luck. He could have died at any moment. Not to mention how freaking strong he was. Olga. This just gets even better and better, but we should be glad that Hyoudou took care of him, Olga muttered. Who's the final servant? Who? There's no way anyone could have mistaken the holy light from her sword, even if it's corrupted and tainted by the Grail, Castor began, and the funny thing is that you actually have a sword, similar to hers, a holy sword, kid. Issei. Wait, you could feel that. He turned to Castor. Medusa. I see now. That's why I had a feeling that I fought this enemy before when I first sensed her. Medusa's voice was calm, yet the way she gazed the wall she was remembering something. The enemy saber is a servant I fought. Who? So you two fought how well in good faith, I'll tell you her true name. Castor nodded. The enemy is none other than the wielder of Excalibur, King Arthur Pendragon. 1 hour later. After receiving the name of their upcoming enemy who would be Arthur and Lefay ancestor the true King Arthur, Issei was starting his preparations while holding his revolver and adding additional bullets while sheathing Ascalon and Brynhildr. As he finished his preparations, he asked Castor about Mana Burst, and with a small knowledge of how it works, he waited for everyone else to get ready. Now they walked through the broken streets of Fayuki. Castor had told them that the Holy Grail War changed midway. Something had caused the incineration of every human living here in Fayuki, leaving behind only servants, and the enemy Saber had defeated and taken control of them. Castor and Saber were the only two remaining in the war, with Archer left as her thralls. The rest were defeated earlier by Castor and Mashu. Issei was prepared the moment they encountered the walking undead. When Issei heard the clamoring of their bony feet against gravel as he shot a dragon shot to destroy their number and rush forward. This surprised everyone, but they all followed his lead. Ritsuka looked at Issei back and noticed how big it is. Meanwhile Issei took this chance to check up on everyone. He started with Olga, who leaned over with her arms on her knees, heaving in and out. Stray strands of hair glued themselves onto her forehead before she dabbed her sweat away with a handkerchief. Ritsuka was by her side, dirt and ashes and sweat adorning her clothes as equally as they did with Olga. She clutched her empty bottle, fingers playing to the cap, twisting it off and on before she caught his gaze. She offered a simple smile, one not large enough to hide her sorrow, but just enough to tell him not to worry. Issei nodded to her before turning his attention towards the last two. Rather than resting, Medusa and Mashu vigiled the perimeter. He then took a look at Mashu, her eyes darted back and forth, fingers wrapped around her shield, unwilling to miss any signs of activity. Issei knew she was a servant now, but it wasn't that simple. He couldn't forget that moment in the wreckage when he had to convince himself that her injury wasn't fatal, or that it was not her blood that had seeped into his souls. He dreaded the way the warmth in her hands flickered, his tightening grip the only kindling he could offer. He hated that he had to choose to let her go in order to protect another. Issei. Rider, Mashu, he called as they approached him. Medusa. Gaze at him. Master. Mashu. Ah, Hyoudou-senpai. Mashu exclaimed. Issei. You can just call me Issei, Mashu, he laughed. Though, shouldn't I be the one calling you senpai? After all, I'm the newest one here. Mashu. No, it's not like that, Issei-senpai, she stuttered and rested a hand on her chest, taking deep breaths. I consider you and Ritsuka-senpai my senior in terms of living. Issei. He raised an eyebrow. Living. Mashu. You see, I was born in Chaldea. All of my life, I spent inside of it, with only pictures and videos to show me the outside world, she explained. Issei. Is that why you wish to see the sky? He murmured to himself before he asked, you've been in Chaldea for how long? Mashu. I'm 16 now, senpai. A wistful smile painted over her face. My entire life was all about Chaldea's mission. I never had a chance to think why, when I met Ritsuka-senpai, she was unlike everyone else. Not that they were bad people, but she had such a different mindset than they did. She didn't care about status or power, she just wanted to help everyone. I thought it was an earnest way to live. She felt more human than anyone I had met. Issei. I can understand that. I don't think Ritsuka gives herself enough credit, he said, but compared to her, I don't think I've really done enough. Mashu. No, that's not true. You definitely remind me of her, Issei-senpai, she exclaimed. When I saw you fight Berserker, I had wondered what gave you the courage to stand against him. Issei. He scratched his cheek. I wouldn't say that was courage. Medusa. Perhaps it would be more apt to say foolishness instead, she added. Mashu. Perhaps, but I was amazed. You had no memories, no obligations, nor any power, she murmured, but you chose to fight rather than run away. It made me question myself. How do humans continue to fight even if the odds stand against them? Normally her bangs covered the left side of her face, but this time, he saw both of her eyes. They were windows to a brilliant violet sea, ravaged by storm and thunder. Issei felt that she had voyaged for a clear sky for her entire life. Issei. You know, it has been overwhelming. Waking up in Chaldea and coming to Fayuki, I'm not sure where to even begin, he admitted. A part of me wants to shout out. Why did I come here? Why did Chaldea get attacked? Why did Fayuki get destroyed? Can I do anything? Why am I even here? He changed his expression into a smile. Maybe there are reasons, maybe not, but that is life. I don't know everything. I can't do everything. But I'm not alone. We're not alone. Even if the world itself is against us, we can help each other. We fight because we want to see another day again. He remembers Team DXD, because our time is as limited as humans, we have to make do with what we have together, Mashu concluded, the tension easing from her shoulders. Exactly. I would rather do something than to regret not doing anything, Issei said. He glanced back and found Ritsuka and Olga run towards them. Because I doubt anyone knows when time will run out. It was nauseating, everyone thought, as they stood at the entrance of the cave. Ritsuka. It sure feels like this is definitely the place, she quivered, rolling her shoulders as if she wanted to shrug something off. The mana concentration here is ridiculous. Mashu. She traced the edge of the entrance with a finger. It looks like a natural cave, but has Fayuki always had such a sight? Olga. This isn't a full natural one. It looks like a Magus once took over it and built their workshop deeper and deeper inside, she concluded after her inspection. They had probably wanted to tap into Fayuki's ley line. Medusa and Ku shifted to the back of the group as Issei heard footsteps from a cliff behind them. Ku. Looks like the Guardian came to greet us personally, Castor snarked, leaning on his staff. A man, hair whiter than snow, peered down from atop the cliff. Red lines, reminiscent of what Issei had seen on the Berserker, crept up from his neck to one side on his face. Medusa. The archer servant, Ryder frowned and tightened her grip on her chains. Archer. I don't recall ever calling myself a guardian, but at the very least, I can take care of intruders, Archer said, rolling his eyes. He kept his hands open, but Issei didn't see any weapons on him. Ku. So, you're on gatekeeping duty. That sounds a bit boring, why let us keep you company for a bit, Archer. Castor grinned and raised his hands, framing them with blue energy. Archer. Motes of light rushed into Archer's hands, materializing into a bow and sword. As soon as he notched the sword, it twisted and transformed into an arrow. I don't have that much free time, he said and took aim, releasing the string. Mashu rushed in front of the group as Issei pulled out his revolver and aim attempted to stop the sword. However, just a few feet before the arrow reached them. Ku. He shouted, I was. A flame sprang from the arrow, twisted around it, and incinerated it into ashes. Don't say such sad things, Archer. What's the rush unless you have no confidence in taking me on? Castor taunted, writing glowing runes onto the air. His arm slashed forth, and the runes transformed into fire and shot forward, converging and exploding at Archer's location. Black smoke billowed up and chunks of dirt and rock flew off the ledge. Archer jumped backward, out of the smoke, clothes not touched by the debris. His mouth tightened, his eyes focused. He readied another sword and aimed again. Ku. Go now. Deal with Saber, me and Ryder got this. Castor urged as he barreled past Mashu. Medusa. Be careful out there, master, and make sure not to get yourself hurt, Issei nodded as he told her to go all out. This is what they had agreed to do earlier, but running deeper into the cave and leaving Castor and Ryder to fight left Issei conflicted. Castor was blunt at times, but Issei didn't mind it. Issei could say it was nostalgic, having someone that he could banter with in the brief time they were together. There were no traps impeding their descent. The moonlight didn't reach deep enough, but there was an eerie violet light that illuminated the path forward. When they reached the opening that the road led to, all of them could only stand in horror at what they saw and felt. Ritsuka. What is that? She asked, turning her head upwards. Issei couldn't answer. The path had opened up into a large span of space, riddled with the bones of countless humans, and a gigantic hill towered over them in the middle of it. It didn't seem like it was composed of actual earth, rather it was some sort of wretched black mud. The violet light emanated at the zenith, radiating out like a sun rising from the horizon. Olga. She frowned, cupping her chin, as she scanned around. Is this a magecraft reactor core? Is this what a holy grail is? Oh ho, a familiar voice called out. I see two interesting servants and their little masters and dragon walking into this den of lions. A girl with a most intriguing shield and someone I had never thought I would face. But I wonder. Issei couldn't help but gazed at the woman who stood at the peak. Just like any woman, she too possessed beauty, but it was cruel rather than captivating. Her skin was pale, untouched snow, and her eyes were just as frigid and desolate, rather than the gentle green. A dense aura, just as black as her armor and dress, coursed through her entire body. Issei grimaced, he recognized it as a form of mana burst. But what he feared most was the dark holy sword that she held in her right hand. He didn't know if that was Excalibur, since he doesn't know what it looked like, but Issei wondered if it was correct to still call it holy, when so much evil seeped from the edge. It was unlike the time he had observed Zenovia's ex-Durandal. It demanded his attention. He felt repulsed by its corruption, yet it still captivated him. This black saber was an exact opposite he thought of King Arthur. Arthur? She looked at Mash and widened her eyes, feeling her spirit origin. It was the shield of the youngest knight of all, son of his best knight. She asked in a stern voice. You who carry this shield, are you prepared to assume the responsibilities it represents? She didn't hear a word, so she burst forward. Mashu nodded to her as she walked forward. Arthur leapt from the hill and cracked the earth with her landing. Arthur? Now then, girl, is your will to protect stronger than my sword? She ran forward as Mashu raised her shield to block the strike. Purple sparks scattered across the surface, and Mashu struggled to parry each of her blows. Her knees buckled each time, arms left shuddering. Unlike other servants, the enemy saber used her mana burst without restraint. Black mana coalesced into her Excalibur so much that it was no longer steel that she wielded, but pure darkness instead. Each attack left Mashu struggling to recover, and the onslaught increased in ferocity. Olga had conjured a barrier to protect them stray debris and mana, but it shuddered from the sheer wind pressure of Saber's swings. Issei wasn't sure how much more Mashu could endure when he could feel the force of Saber's attacks from this far. They had to go on the attack now. Arthur? What's wrong? You cannot protect anything if you do not have the will to press forward. Saber snarled. She swung upwards and smashed Mashu into the air. She lost her grip on her shield, falling onto her face, but she lifted her chin, even if her limbs couldn't muster enough strength to get onto her knees. Arthur? If you cannot get up, then this can only be a mercy for you, Saber murmured. She walked up to Mashu, raising her sword above her head. Issei ran, gathering mana into his legs and letting it explode outwards. The usage of mana burst was instinctual, as if he had used this technique for years. Saber swung down with both arms to behead Mashu, but she struck only dirt. Her eyes narrowed, growling with anger as Mashu had teleported backwards from her position, thanks to Ritsuka's mystic code. She took a step forward to continue her assault, but Issei had already placed himself in his path. Issei called forth his sword and let the mana flow into the blade. Saber's eyes widened as she raised Excalibur to catch Ascalon, crossing their weapons, and he shouted, "Let's see what you can do, King of Knights. Ascalon." The waves of gold erupted from Ascalon, bathing both Issei and Saber in light. The power rippled forward, gouged the ground, and enveloped Saber's entire body. It continued onward until it collided with the hillside. Dust and smoke billowed from the aftermath. Issei. Did that get her? He looked around. Ritsuka rushed towards Mashu with a green glow outlining her mystic code this time. A sudden gale of wind cleared the smoke and turned his attention back towards the hillside. Arthur? To think that you would even possess a dragon slayer's noble phantasm. I see that my thought of you weren't wrong. You are extremely dangerous. Saber pulled herself out from the crater in the hillside. Her entire armor was cracked, and a faint trail of blood ran down the side of her lips. She wiped it off her free hand. But I can tell you are holding back. Let me show you the proper way to utilize your full power. Before Issei could even respond, Saber poured mana into her sword, and the torrent of black light condensed into the shape of a dragon's head. It opened its maw wide and sprung forward, seeking to consume Issei whole. Issei switched his sword as tried to gather all his power towards Brynhildr. Mashu? Sorry, I'm here now, Issei senpai. She grounded her shield in front of Issei, protecting him from the body of the attack. The ground around them cracked as black flames licked the sides of her shield. Issei. That was close. Thanks Mashu, he sighed, but didn't release the power of Brynhildr. Mashu? No. She shook her head. It's the least I can do after my terrible performance as a servant. Arthur? So you managed to avoid that? Then here's your final test. Can you endure this? Saber raised her sword upwards. Black light eclipsed the violet glow, engulfing the very airspace above them. Issei was surprised as Event tightened his grip on the sword. Mashu? That isn't good, Issei senpai, get behind my shield. She cried. Arthur? Excalibur or Morgan? She roared. A tsunami of black light engulfed the entirety of Mashu's shield. The torrent gushed around them, and he could see nothing but darkness. Mashu's knees faltered, her greaves snapped backwards by the force. Her grip on her shield's handle slackened, almost dropping it until another hand covered and supported hers. Ritsuka. Don't give up. I'm here for you, Mashu. She said, smiling. We're here for you. You're not alone. I believe in you. Mashu. That's right, we fight so we can see another day together, Mashu murmured, the vigor slowly returning into her legs. Please watch me, master. Her shield resonated with her will. White light pulsated throughout the surface, eating away at the darkness, and bricks projected from it, forming the foundations of a giant wall. It was a bastion against evil. Ha! Mashu yelled as she began to push back Excalibur Morgan's light. Arthur. The shield finally awakens, Saber murmured as her attack could no longer flow past Mashu's wall. It bubbled up at the center, and Mashu rammed it back at Saber. There was nothing to impede the flood on Saber's side. It submerged her and scoured the ground, leaving nothing but a shallow crevasse in front of them. Smoke from the aftermath obscured their vision, but it subsided quickly. Mashu fell to her knees, barely able to keep her shield upright. Fractures riddled the white wall of her noble phantasm. Ritsuka. Mashu. She wrapped her arms around Mashu's waist, hugging her close. Mashu, I'm okay, but, she wheezed, the fight isn't over yet. Arthur. Stood ready to use noble phantasm again with slitted eyes, blood dripping from her scowl. Her armor was shattered, gaps revealing black garments beneath. Excalibur Morgan. She roared. A second tsunami of black light came towards them. But Issei stood in front of them, having Brynhildr held in position as a green glow engulfed the sword, as everyone was watching in surprise as they heard his words. Issei. I guess no holding back anymore. Brynhildr seal off. All of a sudden the green glow turned into yellow upright light as the sword changed form. As a female voice spoke from the sword. Brynhildr. Approved. Nephilim on. The light exploded around the sword. As the earth trembled on the might of the dragon as Issei green eyes gazed at Arthur. Issei. Let's finish this. Excalibur Nephilim, a roar of a dragon along with the light. As Issei finally sees her down and sees her sword meters away, he rested upon Nephilim as someone appeared. Ku. He came down next to them as Ritsuka, Olga and Mashu were looking at Issei with amazement. I see that you weren't normal at all and finished the battle as well. You all did well lasting this long. Issei noticed he was no longer wearing his coat. Castor's chest was bare, his muscles slick with sweat and smudged with dirt. Medusa. She also landed next to them. Parts of her clothes were scratched, but Issei couldn't see any major injuries. She frowned. Master, I'm glad to see you alright. Issei. I'm glad to see you're alright too, you had a lot to deal with, huh? Issei said, nodding at Mashu. Mashu was able to use her noble phantasm to protect us. Ritsuka. You did a good job, Mashu. I'm so glad, she sniffed. Arthur. Victory to the power that protects, just like that innocent youth back then, the saber spoke. She closed her eyes and smiled. Ultimately, no matter how fate changes, I face the same end when I'm alone. Her leg flickered into transparency, and her foot began to dissolve into a drizzle of golden light. It developed into a heavy rain as it stormed towards her torso, wiping away everything in its path. Ku. What are you talking about? Do you know something? Castor asked. Arthur. Eventually you will come to know, Ireland's child of light. Your trials are not over. The Grand Order, is it? The battle for the Holy Grails has only begun, Saber murmured as her entire body faded away. Ku. Started to yelled, hey, wait. What did you mean by that? He glanced down, noticing that his own legs were also fading into sparks. I see, with the defeat of Saber, the war is over then, and I have no more purpose here. Mashu. Castor-san, thank you very much. She bowed. Ku. TCH, it's nothing. He shouldered his staff and smirked. Well, I'll leave it all up to you to clean up. If there's a next time, summon me as a lancer instead. Issei watched as the last of the sparkles danced into the air. Issei knew servants weren't human, but to see Castor disappear suddenly saddened him. Even if they had summoned him, could he be considered the same person if he didn't have the memories of this version? Issei glanced at Medusa, unsure what would happen when the time comes and she had to leave. Mashu. There's no longer a signature for the enemy Saber and Castor, she looked around. Did we win? Ritsuka. This war should be the source of the singularity, she said. Concluding it should have solved everything. Ritsuka's communicator rang. Roman. Well done, everyone. Dr. Roman exclaimed through the device. I can't get a visual down there, but I'm sure you all are happy. Director, looks like we don't have to worry about the Fyuki singularity. Issei and the others turned to Olga, but she wasn't smiling. Olga. The Grand Order, she whispered. How did that servant know that name? Ritsuka. What's wrong, Director? She asked. Olga. No, it's nothing. She shook her head and smiled. Well done, Mashu, Fujimaru, Hyoudou, and Ryder. Mashu, no matter your inexperience as a servant, your own will was capable of activating your noble phantasm. Keep at it, and you'll be able to unlock its true name. Mashu. Yes. Thank you, Director. She exclaimed. Olga. Fujimaru and Hyoudou, you both also proved yourselves on the battlefield. Utilizing whatever you possess to your advantage is a sign of a good master, she praised. Ritsuka clapped her hand with Mashu in a high five, while Medusa's gaze at her master as he walked towards Olga. Issei. Thank you, director. Without you we wouldn't have survived, he had a smile. Olga. Huh. She was surprised by Issei's kindness. Issei. After getting to Fuyuki, you were the one leading us in the right direction. If you weren't there, director, we wouldn't have made it this far. After saying that, Olga was hiding her face with her sleeve while having tears on her eyes. Olga. You too, this surprise Issei. But not Drake, who was relaxed and saying he still got it as Olga continued. Despite being an ordinary person who knows nothing, you were of assistance, Issei smiled while she held a hand towards him. I acknowledge you, Hyoudou. No, Issei, as the director of Chaldea, I acknowledge your accomplishments. Issei. He was surprised and happy that someone acknowledged his accomplishments. Not even Riaz once acknowledged any of the things he did for her, so in response, he smiled brightly and said, thank Olga. Before their hands could reach, a clap was heard. It echoing around the cave. Issei glanced around to check who was clapping, only to find the group bewildered and on their feet. More claps came, allowing Issei to pinpoint it towards the peak. A man, dressed in a green fur coat, kept clapping, but there was no enthusiasm in it. Lev. My, I never thought you would all get this far. This is an unforeseen element of the project that goes beyond what my tolerance allows. The commanding and snide tone, it was familiar to Issei, but he focuses attention on him. Ritsuka. Wait, she gaped. Mashu. Professor Lev. She ended. Roman. Wait, you all said Professor Lev. He asked from the communication. Olga. Lev. She called out, blinking back tears but failing. Her tears drenched her smile as she ran towards the professor, forgetting everything around her. Thank goodness, you're still alive. Without you, I don't know what I would. Lev. Hello, Olga. Looks like you had a rough time, too, he commented, returning back a smile with no teeth. Olga. Yes, that's exactly right, Lev. With all of the unexpected events, I thought I would go crazy. Olga nodded, rubbing away her tears. But now that you're here, we'll get through it somehow, won't we? Lev. Of course. I'm just so furious with all these unexpected events, he agreed, turning his scowl towards Ritsuka. Romani, I thought I told you to come to the control room immediately. Roman. Lev, he muttered. Lev. He turned to Olga, shaking his head, and sighed. And you, Olga. I planted the bomb right under your feet. I can't believe you're still alive. Olga paused, confusion written over her face. Issei gaped as a part of him hoped Lev was joking, that he had a terrible sense of humor. The other part of him was readying a dragon shot while grasp on the hilt of Nephilim. If it wasn't a joke, then there was only one alternative. Lev. Well, not exactly alive. In fact, you're dead, he sneered, his canines gleaming. Your physical body, anyway. Olga backpedaled, while Issei frowned. He had no idea what Lev was talking about. Olga didn't have any injuries, nor was she even hindered by anything during their ascent to the cave. Lev. When you were alive, you didn't have the aptitude for ray shifting. You couldn't make the transfer when you had a body, he explained, fingering the rim of his hat, but you had such an earnest desire for it, you actually obtained the aptitude as you died. Olga. That's a lie, she cried with her legs trembling. She hugged her body, unable to quell her tremors. Lev. That's why, the moment you all return to Chaldea, your consciousness will cease to exist. Olga. I will cease, she choked, to exist. Lev. But that's too miserable to contemplate, he snarked. You dedicated your life to Chaldea, so the least I can do is show you what's going on. He raised his hand, and a golden cup erupted from the hill and hovered around his palm. He grasped it, fingers barely able to wrap the stem before it submerged into his hand. The golden hue emanated from his hand before it scurried up his arm and framed his entire body. Lev snapped his fingers, a visible distortion slashed across the middle of the sky. It split apart, opening wide into a perfect circle, and revealed what appeared to be a room filled with debris. In the middle of the room, a familiar sphere oscillated and bathed them in red light. Olga. That can't real. She shook her head, glancing back and forth between the sphere and Lev. That has to be a virtual image, right, Lev? Lev. It's the real thing. I linked space-time together for you. You see, with the Holy Grail, even this is possible. So take a good look, heir of the Animisphere family. This is the fate of your family's madness, he said as he pointed towards Olga. Golden light similar to the Holy Grail wrapped around Olga's frame as she hovered into the air. Issei Ritsuka, director. They shouted as they rushed after her, but Mashu and Medusa held both of their arms back. Mashu. Don't go. Mashu pleaded, while Medusa shook her head. Issei couldn't understand why they were refusing to help. Olga. Hey, what are you doing? Olga screamed. She kicked her legs and flailed her arms, but to no avail. Lev. As this is the end, I'll make your wish come true. You may touch your treasure. He laughed, gesturing towards the globe. Olga. No, what are you talking about? Please stop it. That's Chaldea's, you know. She whimpered. Lev. Yes, it's no different than a black hole, or perhaps a sun. He shrugged. Either way, if a human touches it, they will be split apart on a molecular level. You will experience living infinite death. Olga. No. No, somebody help me. Olga shrieked. Her eyes latched onto Issei's. It was the first time he saw Olga begging. No longer was she the director, but only just a girl who wanted to live. Ritsuka. No. Olga. She sobbed, falling to her knees and hands. Tears had painted her cheeks with a gloss thick enough to reflect the burning light of Chaldea's. The moment Olga collided with Chaldea's, a hand reached over and grabbed her hand. It was Issei who held tight, having the boosted gear activate. Issei. Leave everything to me. They call me the man that made the impossible possible. Drake, do it. He shouted in the top of his lungs. Drake. Transfer. A loud, booming voice was heard as the green boosted gear gem glowed and absorbing the golden particles that Olga's soul released while her body was burning swallowed her, fraying and scourging away her skin, muscles, and her bone. Her body was gone. Issei. I got her. Issei said. As he turned around and ready to dragon shot at Lev. Medusa. Master, that was reckless of you. We cannot confront this being here, she said. Bashu. That's right, he's too dangerous, Issei senpai. She ran forward and grounded her shield in front of them. Lev. As expected of the servant and demi-servant. You can both tell that I am a fundamentally different creature, couldn't you? He clapped again. Issei wanted to calm down. Ever since becoming a dragon, he's become even more emotional as he pointed his fist towards Lev. He wanted to wipe away that smirk off of Lev's face, wanted Lev to feel the same feeling of helplessness, wanted him to suffer unending pain just as they did. But he knew he can't afford to be reckless against someone that Medusa and Mashu were apprehensive about. It frustrated him. Lev. The 48th Master and the unknown 49th Master. I had turned a blind eye to both of you because I had thought you both held no promise. Why do humans always want to avoid the course of fate that is chosen for them? He sighed before brushing his clothes and bowed. Then I will introduce myself once more. I am Lev Laner Floros. I am the charge of 2016, tasked to dispose of your human race. Are you listening, Dr. Roman? Roman Lev. He disgust buzzed through. Lev. As fellow students who studied magic together, I will give you one final advice. The future has not disappeared. It's been incinerated. Chaldea is probably protected by the magnetic field of Chaldea's, but I'm sure the outside world is facing the same fate as Fayuki. Roman. Then the reason we aren't able to make contact with the outside isn't because the communications are down, but because there's no one outside to receive them, he concluded. Lev. You will not perish from being a dead-end evolution, nor will you not be destroyed after engaging in a war with different races. Rather, your own meaningless and incompetence will be your end. You have lost the favor of our king, and thus you will burn away like useless trash. He shouted, but all of a sudden he was hit, but Issei dragon shot. Issei. I had enough of your yapping. Eat that and the next time we meet I'll give you some more. He said angrily at pointed Lev. The earth trembled, and they all struggled to maintain their footing. Ritsuka. An earthquake. Or this because of you, Issei? She asked, raising both of her arms for balance. Bashu shook her head. No, this is something else. Rocks fell from the top of the cave, while the ground was torn asunder from the shaking. Lev. This singularity has also reached its limit, said a hurt Lev who is in a crater. The accursed saber caused me unnecessary trouble, trying to maintain this time period even while being awarded the Holy Grail. As Lev faded into thin air and so, farewell, Romani, Mash, Ryder and the Ritsuka and irregular. Leaving them to deal with the falling debris and cracks in the earth. Bashu. The cave is collapsing. No, the very space of this singularity is, she said, covering them from falling rubble with her shield. Ritsuka. She brought her communicator towards her mouth. Doctor, it's time to ray shift us all back. Roman. I got it. However, I'm sorry. It might collapse around you first. Anyway, if he exclaimed, but communications got cut off. Ritsuka. Doctor. She shouted and shook her head at the dimming light of her communicator. The ground they were all standing upon cracked open and launched all of them into the air. Issei, everyone. Issei yelled, trying to reach for their hands. He managed to grab onto Ritsuka and Medusa, while Ritsuka grabbed onto Mashu. Then, everything turned black and he knew no more. Issei snapped his eyes open as he tried to grab for air. He found himself looking down at his hand, tracing the red lines of the tattoo that denoted him as a master. He realized he was in Chaldea's infirmary. He wasn't sure it was a good thing that he kept waking up here. The warm bedding and soft pillows did nothing to comfort him. They gained the singularity but lost Olga. He gripped his hand, nails digging into his palm. Fu. Caillou. Issei looked round and saw Fu sitting on a chair. He flicked his fluffy ears, cocking his head, and looked into Issei's eyes. The thought of this little animal looking at him slightly tugged at his lips. The door opened and then Ritsuka walked in, noticing that he was awake. Dr. Ramani arrived accompanied by Mashu, making the couple look at them. Issei paused as he took in Mashu's appearance. She was no longer wearing armor or carrying her shield and was instead in a simple black dress and jacket. He mused to himself why she would need to wear glasses. Mashu. Ah, good morning, Issei senpai. She carrying Fu in her arms. Ritsuka. Glad to see you're alright, she called out as she walked near Mashu. Medusa. Good morning as well, master. She said, going behind Issei. Issei. He was glad everyone was here and that they were safe. Good morning everyone. Roman. Looks like we're all assembled then, he said as he stood up from where he was sitting. Congratulations and thank you to you both, Ritsuka Fujimaru and Issei Hyoudou. Without your efforts, Chaldea would have been destroyed. Ritsuka. But, she swallowed, what about the director? Roman. Unfortunately, nothing can be done. He shook his head, closing his eyes. Because of your actions, the Fayuki singularity has disappeared. Hove. Roman pointed to Chaldea's. The model of Earth was still burning red, except now there were 7 bright lights around the globe. Roman. 7 new singularities have been discovered. They're space-time disturbances that Fayuki can't even compare to. We will have to ray shift to each of these singularities to resolve them and return history back from to normal. That's the only way we can save the human race and the future. Roman walked towards the remains of a pod-like structure and laid his hand upon it. Aside from you two, all the other masters are left in cryogenic preservation until they can be healed. Mashu and Medusa are the only servants we have. Under these circumstances, I know, we have no choice. Roman inhaled as he faced Issei and Ritsuka. The 48th Master Ritsuka Fujimaru and 49th Master Issei Hyoudou. Are you and your servants prepared to shoulder the responsibility of humanity's future? Issei glanced at Ritsuka, gazing into her eyes. They were swollen from tears but bright with resolve. Both of them already knew the answer. Issei. Ritsuka. Together, we'll fight for it. The future is ours to take back. Roman. And so it will be. This is the Grand Order. Roman declared. Under the directions of our late director Olga Marian Hemisphere, we will preserve humanity. Our goal is to protect and recover human history. Our goal is the search for the sacred artifact in each of the singularities that seeks to be the cause of everything. Our enemy is history itself. Many heroic spirits, all of them legends, will stand in our way. Restoring the future in this way is our only chance. The mission is to protect humanity. Grand Order. Before you change the radius to the first singularity, you need to see Da Vinci. Ritsuka. Da Vinci as in Leonardo da Vinci are here at Chaldea. Ramani. Yes. Follow me. They follow him curiously. However, as soon as they entered the office, everyone looked at the one who occupied it with wide eyes. Well, instead of a he, who appeared before them was a woman, long and beautiful black hair, blue eyes, considerable chest area, wearing a green and red dress with blue long sleeves and blue stockings. Everyone blinked at least twice at the sudden appearance, and the couple swore they'd seen that face before. Issei. I thought Da Vinci was a man. He was having a meltdown, including Drake. Da Vinci. She could only smile at the young man in front of him. I am indeed a man. However, Mona Lisa is for me the ideal beauty that I have always looked for in life. Therefore, I managed to create a doll of the perfect beauty that everyone sees. So, with that said, all of you can feel free to revel in my beauty. The man now woman even fell into a pose for good measure. Roman. Important matters. Da Vinci-chan. Da Vinci. Oh, why didn't you say that? Well, you can ditch that old mystic code you're using. I had just finished the new model for the Masters of Chaldea. You are the only ones, so you will be the first to do a field test. The director explained that the master is still having trouble supplying mana directly to his servants, so I made this mystic code that will allow you to convert better mana into supply for Mash over there. Ritsuka. Good to know, I guess. Da Vinci. Well, it's not every day I meet a dragon. Issei was shocked as well as everyone there, who turned to look at Issei. You may have fooled everyone. But me, a genius, you cannot fool Issei Hyoudou. Issei was now freaking out. The genius has figured out what should he do. Should he confess or should he tell them? Meanwhile, in DXD. All the leaders of the supernatural were sitting in a round table, but you can notice their gazes were all fixed toward one man. To be exact, an old man holding what seems to be a jewel sword. Zelrich was drinking tea, very normally, well being surrounded by the supernatural, who all had their eyes on him, as Surzich begins to speak. Surzich. So you say you can only send 3 of us to Issei location, but I cannot be a leader, or anyone strong, am I correct? He said, wanting to clarify again. Zelrich. That right Mo, currently I can only send 3 people, so who do you decide to go? That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.